Hello, my name is Mackenzie Gagan, and I'll be discussing my study titled The Effectiveness of Non-Contingent Reinforcement in Reducing Attention-Maintained Property Destruction in a Child with Autism. Previous case analyses have found NCR protocols to be effective in reducing attention-maintained maladaptive behaviors. More specifically, previous research has shown that NCR protocols have yielded immediate decreases in attention-maintained challenging behaviors in toddlers with developmental disabilities. The participant of the study is a 3-year-old girl diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Throughout the study, she's referred to as Anna. Anna engages in property destruction, defined as any success or attempt to swipe items off of surfaces, stomping on items, throwing items, ripping them, or forceful biting of items. A functional assessment was conducted and determined that her property destruction, or PD, is maintained by socially mediated positive reinforcement. The study took place in a multidisciplinary clinic in which she receives one-on-one ABA services for 4 to 5 hours a day, depending on if she also receives speech therapy or occupational therapy that day. Anna has been observed to engage in property destruction when the RBT working with her attends to peers or other staff members. Other instances of property destruction have been observed when involved in peer play, if that peer engages with a different peer, or during circle time when the circle time leader calls on other children. The frequency of the PD forms a barrier to her skill acquisition within the clinical environment. If the PD were to maintain at the same level in topography, it would greatly limit Anna's success in a classroom environment, which is a goal that parents have expressed to her treatment team. The study aims to evaluate if an NCR procedure will decrease property destruction behavior for Anna, a 3-year-old female with ASD within the clinical setting. I sought to answer this question with an ABAB reversal design. During baseline conditions of the study, direct therapy sessions were run by me as an RBT with my supervising BCBA overlapping for each session. When an instance of PD was observed, the observer would collect frequency data and follow the consequence intervention that was already written in Anna's treatment plan prior to the study. The consequence intervention includes modeling functional interactions or play with the item that Anna is attending to destroy, such as using crayons to draw on paper or pushing car toys on a track. If she continued to engage in the property destruction, the observer would continue to collect data for each instance and then model a functional demand for attention, such as "excuse me" or saying the direct staff member's name. If Anna continued to engage in property destruction, the observer would again continue to collect data and continue to model functional play until Anna engaged with the tangibles functionally or she admitted a functional request for attention. At the conclusion of each session, frequency data was converted into rate per hour data. During the intervention conditions, my supervising BCBA and I would run the session. At the start of the session, we would determine who would be taking behavior data and who would be conducting the fixed time interval NCR protocol. These roles would rotate for each session. Intervals were set at 30 seconds. Prior to the study, Anna would engage in PD as often as every 40 seconds, which is what determined the interval for the study. At the start of the session, the person conducting the NCR protocol would start the interval timer. At the end of each 30-second interval, positive reinforcement in the form of attention, such as verbal statements or physical interactions, was delivered to Anna. When an instance of property destruction was observed, the data collector would collect frequency data. In the intervention condition, there was no consequence intervention implemented following instances of PD. At the conclusion of each session, an interval timer would be stopped and the frequency data was then converted into rate per hour data. The graphic display shows you how many instances of property destruction were observed for each hour-long session. As you can see, baseline conditions yielded stable, high levels of property destruction. The second baseline phase was far too extended in an effort to collect some more data, but upon reflection, the second baseline phase could have ended after 5 sessions. Intervention conditions yielded stable, lower levels of property destruction. When comparing the average rate per hour of PD in the alternating conditions, the NCR showed to decrease the PD behavior by 48.9% within the study. While the NCR was effective in reducing the property destruction behavior, Anna was still engaging in property destruction at an average rate of 5.8 instances per hour within intervention conditions. This points to a limitation of the study being time. The second intervention phase began to show lower levels of property destruction. When implementing NCR protocols in the future, I would consider combining other reinforcement protocols to see a more dramatic decrease in the behavior. Additionally, 30-second intervals are challenging for direct therapy staff to maintain, especially if they were to be conducting any skill acquisition programming. The NCR schedule would need to be thinned over time in order to generalize the behavior decrease, give Anna the opportunity to work on other skills, and to mitigate the resurgence of property destruction. Another limitation of the study is the environment in which it's conducted. As Anna is pulled for speech therapy or occupational therapy appointments throughout her day, we're unaware of how they navigate instances of property destruction, and they are not conducting any operationalized NCR protocols. Within that same vein, Anna's parents have received training in the consequence intervention previously discussed, but I can't verify that they implement it with high fidelity. This would be a concern in the implementation of an NCR protocol within the home setting as well. Thank you for your time. I look forward to any feedback offered and fielding any questions or concerns that you may have.